time. So Denise and Dustin are going to read, sort of co-read their poems. And then Denise is going to read her work, and then Dustin. So I'm going to introduce them both first. So let me start with Dustin. Dustin Brookshire, a finalist for the 2021 Scotty Merrill Award, is the curator of the Wild and Precious Life series and editor of Limp Wrist. He is the author of 2 chapbooks, Love You Most of All?
Love Most of You Too.
Love Most of You. Oh, I apologize. Love Most of You Too, Harbor Editions 2021, and To the One Who Raped Me, Sibling Rivalry Press 2012. Visit Dustin online, and we'll put your contact in the chat. And Denise Duhamel's most recent book of poetry is Second Story, Pittsburgh 2021, Pittsburgh Press. Her other titles include Scald, Blowout, Ka-Ching, 2 and 2, Queen for a Day, selected in new poems, The Star-Spangled Banner, and Kinky. A recipient of fellowships from the Guggenheim Foundation and the National Endowment for the Arts, Duhamel teaches at the MFA program at Florida International University in Miami. And with that, I give you Denise and Dustin. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. I know it's beautiful outside, so thank you doubly for everyone who's in Florida who's given up the sunshine to be here. As Susanna explained, Dustin and I will each read a Barbie poem, going back and forth, and then I'll launch into some poems, newer poems, and then Dustin will read some of his newer poems as well. And thank you, Judy, for arranging everything and inviting us to read. I also wanted to just throw out there that Dustin has asked me to co-edit with him an issue of Barbie poems for Limp Wrist, his fabulous magazine. Beth is here. Beth Gillis, she was a co-editor for an amazing issue of Villanelles that you can check out too. So Limp Wrist is fabulous. And then anyway, I just wanted to say that the deadline is, oh good, okay, it's right there. The deadline's December 31st of this year. So, you know, if you have anything or inspired, please send us some work. So I think that's it, and I will just start. Here we go. This is called Antique. Oh, I wanted to hold up my book. I know you're supposed to. This book is 25 years old. Kinky. Oh, and Dustin's coming. So that was kind of the impetus, I think, for Dustin asking me to revisit these revisit the book, have a little party for the book, and then invite you all to read. And I wanted to just hold up this too, in case anybody reads Portuguese. This is Mundo Barbie, which is kinky in Brazilian Portuguese, that came out this year. So it's just crazy to have, well, first of all, you feel really old having a book that's 25 years old, but also really grateful, right, that it's still maybe somewhat relevant. All right, so here we go. This is called Antichrist Barbie. She could turn her head all the way around, like Linda Blair in The Exorcist. Her bare, high-heeled feet were begging to be nailed, Jesus style, to the cross. Mothers saw their daughters' dolls levitate above pink carrying cases, then tip upside down, arms straight out to their sides. Barbie's an angel, cried the little girls who loved her, who would mortgage their souls to be like her, who would do anything she asked.
Pandemic Barbie. She sits inside her Barbie Malibu dream house like a socialite waiting on her assistant. Her body yearns to be dressed by little girls, but especially those little boys who'll give her glitz and glamour. Mothers debate letting the dolls sit for 2 to 3 days post-playdate or wiping them down with Lysol. Barbie doesn't have COVID, cry the little girls and the little boys who in secret love her. The boys who'll grow up to cinch their waists, sissy their walk, balk at lace front wigs, leave family and friends behind to free their inner Barbie, who grow up to be men thankful one blue pill a day will prevent at least one virus.
Thank you. That's great, thanks. This one is called One Afternoon When Barbie Wanted to Join the Military. It was a crazy idea, she admits now, but camouflage was one costume she still hadn't tried. Barbie gone mod with go-go boots during Vietnam. Throughout Panama, she was busy playing with a Frisbee the size of a Coke bottle cap. And while troops were fighting in the Gulf, she wore a gown inspired by Ivana Trump. When Mattel told her, hell no, she couldn't go, Barbie borrowed G.I. Joe's fatigues, safety pinning his pants' big waist to better fit her own. She settled in his olive tank, but Barbie thought it was boring. Why don't you try running over something small, coaxed G.I. Joe, who sat naked behind the leg of a human's living room chair. Barbie saw imaginary bunnies hopping through the shag carpet. I can't, she said. G.I. Joe suggested she gun down the enemy who was sneaking up behind her. Barbie couldn't muster up the rage for killing, even if it were only play. Maybe if someone tried to take her parking space or scratched her red Trans Am. Maybe if someone had called her a derogatory name, but what had the soldier from the other side done? G.I. Joe, seeing their plan was a mistake, asked her to return his clothes, making Barbie promise not to tell anyone. As she slipped back into her classic baby blue one-piece swimsuit, she realized this would be her second secret. She also couldn't tell about the time she posed nude for Hustler. A young photographer who lived in the house dipped her legs in a full bottle of Johnson's baby oil, then swabbed some more on her torso. Barbie lounged on the red satin lining of the kids' Sunday jackets. He dimmed the lights and lit a candle to create a glossy centerfold mood. Lick your lips, he kept saying, forgetting Barbie didn't have a tongue. She couldn't pout. She couldn't even bite the maraschino cherry he dangled in front of her mouth. Luckily, there was no film in his sister's camera, so the boys' pictures never came out. Luckily, G.I. Joe wasn't in the real army, or he said he would risk being court-martialed. He wasn't supposed to lend his uniform to anyone, especially a girl. Just then, a human hand deposited Ken from the sky. Somewhere along the way, he'd lost his sandals. What have you two been up to? He asked. Barbie didn't have the kind of eyes that could shift away, so she lost herself in the memory of a joke made by her favorite comedian, Sandra Bernhardt, who said she liked her dates to be androgynous because if she were going to be with a man, she didn't want to have to face that fact. Barbie was grateful for Ken's plastic flat feet and plastic flat crotch. No military would ever take him, even if there were a draft. As G.I. Joe bullied Ken into a headlock, Barbie told the boys to cut it out. She threatened that if he kept it up, G.I. Joe would never get that honorable discharge.
MAGA Barbie. She could be from Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, Alabama, or any state that voted red. Little girls never pick her. Mothers make the purchase, bribe their daughters to pose with Barbie and wear a matching MAGA hat. Mothers post the pictures on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Hashtag MAGA women. Hashtag women for Trump. Hashtag Trump girls break the internet. MAGA Ken isn't sold separately. Barbie's instruction sheet explains a strong MAGA family is led by a man. Barbie and Ken are already married. Why else would they be so close in that box? After the photo shoot, mothers quickly trash Barbie's box. Some daughters notice Barbie's logo isn't the signature cursive. The pink isn't Pantone pink. And Mattel is M-A-T-E-L-L instead of M-A-T-T-E-L on the bottom of the box. With Google, girls quickly discover the Trump campaign launched MAGA Barbie after Mattel announced Barbie campaign Ting gift set, a campaign manager, fundraiser, voter, and a Black presidential candidate. Barbie gift set includes a link to a downloadable voting ballot, I'm a future voter sticker, and you can be anything activity sheets. Daughters prefer these items to the 5% discount code for Art of the Deal. Prefer these 4 Barbies over MAGA Barbie and Ken, who only remind them of what they don't want to become.
Fabulous. It's so good. Thank you. Thanks. And this poem, next poem is called Kinky, which is the title poem of the book. Kinky. They decide to exchange heads. Barbie squeezes the small opening under her chin over Ken's bulging neck sockets. His wide jawline jostles atop his girlfriend's body, loosely, like one of those nodding novelty dogs destined to gaze from the back windows of cars. The two dolls chase each other around the orange country camper, unsure what they'll do when they're within touching distance. Ken wants to feel Barbie's toes between his lips, take off one of her legs and force his whole arm inside her. With only the vaguest suggestion of genitals, all the alluring qualities they possess as fashion dolls up until now have done neither of them much good. But suddenly Barbie is excited, looking at her own body under the weight of Ken's face. He is part circus freak, part thwarted hermaphrodite, and she is imagining she is somebody else, maybe somebody middle class and ordinary, maybe another teenage model being caught in a scandal. The night had begun with Barbie getting angry at finding Ken's blow-up doll folded and stuffed under the couch. He was defensive and ashamed, especially about not even having the breath to inflate her. But after a round of pretend tears, Barbie and Ken vowed to try to make their relationship work. With their good memories as sustaining as good food, they listened to late-night radio talk shows, one featuring Dr. Ruth. When all else fails, just hold each other, the small sex therapist crooned. Barbie and Ken, on cue, groped in the dark, their interchangeable skin glowing, the color of Band-Aids. Then they let themselves go. Soon Barbie was begging Ken to try on her spandex miniskirt. She showed him how to pivot as though he were on a runway. Ken begged to tie Barbie onto his yellow surfboard and spin her on the kitchen table until she grew dizzy. Anything, anything, they both said to the other's requests, their mirrored desires bubbling from the most unlikely places.
Before I read my final Barbie poem, I just want to shout out to Denise's Kinky once again on turning 25, and that I'm so thrilled that you were open to this idea. It means so much to me to get to read Barbie poems back and forth with you. So thank you for making my little gay heart happy.
My pleasure.
Lesbian Barbie. Tossed in the toy box, plastic body to plastic body with all the other Barbies, she's horrified when her arm that was left reaching for the sky is now up Christmas Barbie's ball gown. She respects consent. People think she's good with power tools, could build a deck or add a room for the Barbie dream house, but she's never held a drill. She can't. Lesbian Barbie is envious of made-to-move baseball player Barbie's 22 joints, some in the neck, wrist, torso, and hips that allow for, as Mattel says, lots of flexibility and an incredible range of movement. She knows with joints should be a player, hopes to join Mattel's baseball team. At least one baseball player Barbie has to be a lesbian too. And now Denise in second story.
Thank you. Thank you, Dustin. That was fabulous because I wrote these poems so long ago, I was like, oh, there's nothing left to say. And then when I read Dustin's, I'm like, oh, there's so much left to say about Barbie, or using Barbie as a vehicle to write really about whatever you want, actually. But anyway, thank you, Dustin. And I thought I'm going to read from Second Story now, which is my latest book. And because we just read about Barbie and sort of like when you talk about Barbie, you can't get away from like lookism or the surface, right? I wanted to read this poem called Downsides, and it's dedicated to Samantha Brick, who wrote, "There are downsides to looking this pretty, why women hate me for being beautiful." I swear this is a real article that was published in The Guardian in 2012. So this is my response to Samantha. Downsides. Seems I can't go anywhere without some dude trying to get inside my frontal lobe. Just once, I'd like to go to a hotel bar without hearing, "Nice brainstem, can I buy it a drink?" Or, "Did anyone ever tell you your cerebellum? It could be a model." Whenever I pass a construction site, the hard hats whistle at my bouncy left and right hemispheres. As I scurry away, I get stuck up neocortex. At work, Mr. Smith ogles my limbic system, and the administrative assistants with the small brains ignore me in the lunchroom. I guess it's true. I flaunt my high IQ. I can be a tease when it comes to anagrams and special reasoning. But hey, don't we all use whatever we have? Unlike most women, I'm actually looking forward to senility, so everyone will stop seeing only my brain and accept me for who I truly am. And this next poem, thank you. This next poem is called I Love Sex in All Its Forms, because I think the other thing when I think of Barbie is like, you kind of can't escape the vapid, weird, very weird sexuality. So this is called I Love Sex in All Its Forms, and it's a pantoum, and it's a found pantoum in many ways because they're all subject headings from my spam email. Every line that I'll read is quote unquote true. So I went into spam one day, and obviously all these lovely ladies think that I'm a straight man. So here we go. This is I Love Sex in All Its Forms. Spam email from Mindy. Hey, big guy, I'm lonely and wet. Being in love, a blessing or a curse? My boner brew will make you a better screw. I just added 3 new naked photos. Being in love, a blessing or a curse? Text me, I guarantee we'll have a blast. I just added 3 new naked photos. Want to hear me talk dirty in my luscious British accent? Text me, I guarantee we'll have a blast. What should I do? I'm married, but only want you. Want to hear me talk dirty in my luscious British accent? Need a hot date with a sexy lady. What should I do? I'm married, but only want you. We don't have to explain ourselves to anyone. Need a hot date with a sexy lady? I'm gorgeous and only 2.8 miles away. We don't have to explain ourselves to anyone. Are you man enough to rock my world? I'm gorgeous and only 2.8 miles away. Here are some other girls you might like. Are you man enough to rock my world? I'll prove to you we're the perfect match. Here are some other girls you might like. Don't forget to leave space in your life for me. I'll prove to you we're the perfect match. Are you available, literally or metaphorically? Don't forget to leave space in your life for me. It's raining men and I need one. Are you available, literally or metaphorically? My boner brew will make you a better screw. It's raining men and I need one. Hey, big guy, I'm lonely and dry. Thank you. So much of the book, while I just read these oddball, kind of oddball poems, much of the book tries to take on the climate crisis. So I thought I would read you this. This is the first poem in the book, and it's called Folkways. I see the sea getting closer. I read we'll soon run out of drinking water. I floss the steak out of my teeth. I should be vegan. Even the teenager told me so. She said I had the right sandals and earrings. I step off the plane, look up my carbon footprints. Greenland is melting due in part to my recent Google search. All my dead iPhones, along with scraps of bologna and turkey bones, add to the landfill populated by vultures in some countries, child scavengers in others. I buy South American fruit in North American groceries. Sustainability is a hoax, the article says, but I recycle anyway, cycle instead of drive when I can. Emma evacuates Santa Barbara, wildfire in her rearview mirror, a laptop covered in ash, and a few books in her trunk. I say goodbye to my furniture and clothes whenever I evacuate for yet another hurricane, decide what to bring, what to leave behind. My friend's favorite joke, what is the population of Bombay? Wait a second, let me check my watch. When I was young and naive, I had a foster child from Bangladesh. This was before I knew how much the charity's CEO was making. I was an adjunct in New York City with 3 jobs, but knew I was rich by comparison. I could pretend I was a good person. My sanitized love and concern reflected in the drawings the child sent. I started to volunteer instead at the Catholic Worker, ladling soup and oatmeal into plastic bowls. The homeless smelled like I would have smelled if I didn't have running water or a toothbrush or quarters for the laundromat. Eileen Miles slept outside their New York City apartment with the homeless, but was sure not to use any resources the displaced needed. Miles took their own food so that the truly needy could get first dibs on dumpster bagels. Until you have no toilet paper, you can't imagine how precious it is. No tampons or moisturizer or shampoo. I live in Florida now, where a graying man makes his home on the beach. He is a war vet, my neighbors say, but I am not sure which war. There have been so many. He showers where others simply rinse off sand. He waited out Irma in a shelter while I drove away with friends. Now he sleeps near the restrooms in the park and shuffles down to the surf, takes his morning swim. When he catches me leaving him half a roasted chicken, he says, thanks for the delivery. He says maybe his luck is changing. Maybe one day soon the ocean will come to him. Thank you, thanks. I can see all these little clapping hands, thank you. Speaking of hands, this next poem has hands in the title. It's called Poker Hands, and it's an elegy for my father who passed away in 2008. Poker Hands. The day you left us, you almost forgot to wave goodbye as you followed the anesthesiologist to the operating room, scuffing along in non-skid slipper socks, one of those surgical caps on your head. You were going to a sterile and cold place when Mom said, wait a minute, what about my kiss? You came back and then turned and waved goodbye with both hands, hands that could pull out pies from the oven without pot holders, hands that could shovel and make snowballs without gloves. All those years of baking from the freezer to the proof rack to the ovens made your hands what they were. Your poker hands, which dealt the cards for pitch and 21. You were serious when you played, tapping the table so we'd pay attention. You had nicks and cuts and burns you shrugged off, just like you shrugged off the surgery. We were so sure you would come around. Sore, yes, depressed, maybe. We'd read up on all the side effects of the procedure, but you were ready, fearless, man of Bayer and Vicks. The only medicines you really believed in. I know it's too late, but I'm sorry I was a jerk so much of the time. I'm sorry I was such a spoiled brat. You only bought one luxury your whole life, a leather lounge chair, while I wanted a guitar, a new coat like the other girls, brand name jeans, a bike, and money for the movies. I grabbed everything with my weak hands that turn blue in a cold room, ricochet when the faucet runs too hot, hands that get chapped doing simple things like dishes. Now that you are no longer here, sometimes my hands are your hands, when they are empty and still and grateful, when I fold them to pray the way you did, when I helped someone like you helped me the morning I woke up with a hangover after a high school party. You poured me a glass of orange juice and plucked a pickle from the jar and put it on a saucer. The combination worked, our very own father and daughter dance. Soon after, we went to the airport so I could board my first plane to travel farther than you or Mom had ever been. I stooped, having second thoughts, my paisley suitcase suddenly too heavy. Mom told me we could turn around, that I could stay home, and you told Mom, honey, you've got to let her go. After the agent took my ticket, I turned and waved, my pudgy fingers, my purple polish already starting to chip. Then I followed the other travelers to the rest of my life, scuffling along in my sneakers, one of your baseball caps on my head. Thank you, thanks. And then my mom, thank you. My mom died this summer in July. And so I'm gonna just read a few very new, obviously, because she just passed. But so I'm trying to write elegies for her as well. And this first one is called Two More Purses. And I wrote it after Gertrude Stein, who wrote this, a purse. A purse was not green, it was not straw color, it was hardly seen, and it had a use, a long use, and the chain was never missing. It was not misplaced. It showed that it was open. That is all that it showed. Two More Purses, after Gertrude Stein. When my mother passed, I emptied her white purse, tissue pack and reading glasses, coupons and address book. I once lived in the purse inside her, my first pink home, the knotted strap, an umbilical cord. When I grew up, I took care of my own purse, its pristine lining, never stretched or stuffed with a fetus. I waxed the buckles, polished the pink clit, the tender button that opened and closed my clutch. I carried pleasure inside me, my lips keeping so many secrets. I tipped my mother's empty purse upside down, its vulnerable silk insides torn. Thank you, thanks. And this is a short one called That's Where You'll Find Me, which is from the song Over the Rainbow. That's Where You'll Find Me, July 3rd, 2021. My mother's nursing home roommate is playing Israel Kamakawiwo'ole's version of Over the Rainbow, which bleeds into What a Wonderful World. My mom is sleeping or drugged or a combination of both. I step into the hall, afraid my sniffling will wake her. When I come back to her bedside, I hold her hand, say Hail Marys as she mouths along. Then she shouts, my top left drawer. I hold up her track phone, a picture of Dad, a plastic rosary. No, 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 she says, and I fail her once again. Kamakawiwo'ole died of respiratory failure, like my mother will soon. Her troubles melting like the Brock's lemon drops atop her bureau. And thank you, thanks. Thanks, it's so scary, you know, to read new poems, but I thought, like, I feel safe here. So I will. This is called What We Learned After She Died. My mother used a page torn from People, a picture of Idris Elba, sexiest man alive, as a bookmark. When a neighbor boy died at only 17, my mother was working in the ER. She drove his little sister, my friend, back to our house to play so she wouldn't have to see her parents' grief. My mother went to her prom with Al, her best friend's brother, a gay man who now lives in San Francisco. She helped my cool older cousin through a rough patch in her marriage. I felt I was more her daughter than her niece. We both always spoke our minds. Someone named Paula knew her. Another person named Lorraine. Both women send cards. Gloria says, she was inscrutable. I never knew what she was thinking. Ellen says, she sure was sarcastic, but such a good nurse. My mother donated to causes, Doctors Without Borders, Wounded Warriors, and MAD, since my sister was hit by a drunk driver her senior year. She donated even though a few years ago, I looked up each charity and told her their dismal ratings. My sister and I remember playing with the neighborhood girl, jump rope. It was summer. Remember my mother saying, only talk about it if she brings it up first. Thank you. And this next little, this is a little poem called Inheritance. My sister gives her grandsons the Cracker Barrel gift card my mother never got to use. They buy candy, Smarties, Cowtails, now and later long-lasting chews, then blow kisses up to their Gigi, who now lives beyond the cluttered ceiling in a gloriously retro heaven that smells like a Yankee seaside candle, or maybe pancakes. They were so cute. Like I have these little grandnephews like aged 11 to 4, and they're not religious at all because my nieces are like, hell no, we're not bringing them to the Catholic Church. But they have all these weird, like, heaven smells like pancakes, or heaven's a video game where you go in to another portal, and they had all these really cool metaphorical ways of talking about it, which is kind of interesting. And I will end before we hear Dustin with this poem, which is the last poem in Second Story, called Dear Memory. Dear Memory, what have you done with my keys? I blame you, though it's hard to hold a grudge these days because I usually don't remember why I was angry in the first place. I look at a person, sure she's done me wrong, though the inciting incidents are lost. Former students seem familiar, but their names disperse like cigarette smoke, blowing towards a stool where I once drank myself sick. Now I'm not even sure what city that bar was in, the welcoming pink neon letters, another cloud, as though I am looking at tiny prints without my reading glasses. I was on a pink cloud when I first stopped drinking. In fact, I once looked up at the moon, weeping in gratitude. So there, I do recall something. I was walking across the Brooklyn Bridge in an ex's sweatpants, though I'm not sure anymore of his name or if I ever gave those sweatpants back. I'm usually halfway through a movie on Netflix when I realize I've already seen it, probably in an old-fashioned freestanding theater, perhaps a matinee or midnight screening, perhaps a popcorn bucket on my lap, that is, if I wasn't on some fad diet. Did I take my pain pill or not? I'm drinking water, but not sure I can detect that bad taste all the way back on my tongue. Maybe I have been drinking more water than I thought. Is it time to go to the gynecologist again? The office usually sends me a reminder postcard, but today I'm holding a letter from the breast center saying it's time again for my mammogram. I usually get a prescription from the gynecologist about a month beforehand. This is how it's been these last few years. I wonder if my doctor is retired or dead. I would call him, but I have forgotten his name. It begins with an S, and I think I remember the exit. I look through the stack of business cards I saved for moments such as this, but no card for him. I go to take out the recycling just moments after I took out the recycling. I stand at the fridge, its door ajar, the cold light bulb, an idea for a poem which I've also forgotten, a sublime dream that woke me in the middle of the night, a sublime dream I was sure I'd never forget. Ah, here is my key ring, but this gold one with the big square head, what lock could it possibly open? Thank you everybody for listening. It was great to be here. And now I introduce Dustin Brookshire, who will read next.
Thank you so much, Denise. I'm gonna give another plug. Second story, you need to buy Denise's book. I don't know how his books get better and better. Every book I read by Denise, I'm like, oh my God, that's so fucking amazing. And then I read the next one, I'm like, how does she do that? What is the recipe to be even better than the last when you write so many books? I am so jealous, but buy this book, trust me, you would not regret it. And thank you to Judy and Susanna. I'm so excited to be back reading for your series. Last year, you were the first South Florida-based series after moving here that I got to read for, and I will never forget it. So you always hold a special place in my heart for that and all that you do for poetry and the literary scene in general. So thank you for everything that you do. I'm going to read two new poems first, and then I'm going to get into my chapbook, which I'll hold up now, which is a love most of you too. I think you should buy it too, because I think it's pretty cool, I hope, but that's a copy of it there. So I love villanelles. My mentor, Beth Gillis, is here. She's the villanelle queen, so I hope to be the villanelle princess one day. This is a new villanelle called Senior Year Memory Villanelle. There was a time when I was straight, elementary, middle, and high school. I also remember all the hate. Senior year, my girlfriend was late. The pull-out method, I was a fool in the days when I was straight. I told myself college could wait. My mother did dishes in a pool of bleach after my cousin left. The hate and fear because he was gay. No debate. All gays have it, she said from her stool. I spent too much time trying to be straight. I begged God with one word, menstruate. She did, news more precious than any jewel that made me think of all the hate in my family in the peach state, my loved ones, strangers, they could be so damn cruel. There's never been a day I was straight. I just hid because of all the hate. Thank you. This next poem has epigraph because it's actually inspired by Denise's poem Nature, which is in Girl Soldier, I think. Middle school science class. Mrs. Smizer explained the life cycle of stars. Our sun, a yellow dwarf, will become a red giant. Flames will consume Mercury and Venus like appetizers before reaching Earth. My ears ignored the 5 billion year timeline. We're gonna burn to death, I exclaimed. I don't think any of us will be around in 5 billion years, Dustin, she laughed, giggles wafting through the air. A few students looked as horrified as me. Maybe they too were Southern Baptist, raised on fearing a city of flames. I knew what was going to happen. God was going to use the sun for that final destruction the preacher warned about. The red giant loomed from the pages of the text without any sign of salvation. Thank you. And now I'm going to read some poems from Love Most of You Too. This poem opens the chapbook. Wanting to come out. 13, in the bathroom, with my brother's razor, door locked, drawers out to barricade. I sat not wanting to bring razor across flesh, not wanting to live a life explaining a scar, even though now I realize that's all we do, explain our scars to one another and hope for understanding. I sat slouched on the floor, back to wall, staring at my feet to avoid my reflection. I sat with razor in hand. I can't be more honest when I say I didn't want to slit my wrists, only needed to hear, "We love you." Fist pummeled the door. My brother yelled, "What the hell are you thinking?" We never spoke of that night again. Thank you. Faggot. I own the word like you own your name. Let it roll off my tongue and grate you like cheese. Faggot. I said it. You heard me. It's the word you want to use against me. Pour over my body like boiling water. Baby, I can stand the heat. The word I once to use against my cousins, Anthony, faggot, Brian, faggot, Lamar, faggot. It even tried to haunt Dustin, faggot. But I deal the word like a shark in Vegas. Thank you. This poem wants to be censored. And I will say this has some very dated references in it because this poem is probably about 15 years old. So you're going to hear some things in here that were all in the news at times. This poem wants to be censored. This poem wants to cause a ruckus like Janet Jackson's pierced nipple, give the right wing more than a nipple ring to sink their communion taking mouths into. This poem says bring the black permanent markers to mark out its lines like school officials in New Jersey blacked out the yearbook picture of 2 male students kissing. This poem says strike a match the page on which it's written, you Hitler wannabe motherfucker. This poem is ready to blaze. This poem has no problem saying fuck the Patriot Act. If you think library records are telling, then this poem wants to know if reading Edward Hirsch's How to Read a Poem classifies it as a terrorist. This poem loves to be dirty and true, to say getting rid of Bush was needed because a bush only gets in the way. Yes, this poem is begging to be censored. This poem knows, unlike the ones who would censor it, censorship only makes the world want it more. This next poem is in an anthology, Divining Divas, 100 Gay Men on their divas. And a friend of mine invited me to submit to it. And I wanted to write about Dolly Parton, because if you know me, I love Dolly Parton, which is probably good it didn't work out. He said, I already have a Dolly poem. Can you write something religious? Anybody that knows me, that was all like, oh, fuck me, how can I pull this off? I wanted to be an anthology. So I did some research and I fell in love with the Jewish myth of Lilith, that Lilith was the first woman created. And so it does have an epigraph from Genesis, and it says, and the rib which the Lord God had taken from man made a woman and brought her unto the man. Genesis does not mention you. You too were created of dust. Folklore whispers that you wouldn't obey. If mentioned, we might read that you were banished from the garden, not what really happened. You wouldn't call Adam master, lie beneath him. You asked why he had to be on top and refused to be the first beggar for the sake of a man's ego. You reminded Adam that you were made of the same dust, created by the same God, an equal beginning for equal partners. Adam ran to his God. You spoke the unspeakable name, vanished, leaving Adam to slander. Lilith, dark one who leads girls astray. Lilith, temptress of new husbands. Lilith, mother of all demons. I toast to you. Lilith, first to question. Lilith, first protester. Lilith, first to say, I can leave. I can make my own way. Thank y'all so much. See, I pulled religious off. That's my only religious poem. This one is dedicated to my friend Jeff. It's called To Terry Hatcher with Love. I have it on good authority that Terry Hatcher started an email to her Desperate Housewife co-stars with, "Listen, you bitches." My mouth left wide open after hearing this scoop. "Really?" I exclaimed. I saw a copy of the email a friend verified. "Maybe you should send it to me," I coaxed. "I'm not losing my job," he or she replied. This was the moment I started to like Terry Hatcher. I came to peace with her character on Desperate Housewives, who always annoyed me. Watch me be cute and trip over Air Susan, or I'm desperate to get Mike at all costs season 1 Susan. I often wish for Terry's character to be written off, but then it happened, like the epiphany at the end of a season. I suddenly loved Terry Hatcher. I cheered for Susan, even laughed when she tripped over nothing. Yes, you want to know the dirt behind the "Listen, you bitches" email, but the email's not the point of this poem. The point is we're capable of doing a 180 when someone else has the balls or brass ovaries to do what we dream of. And thank you to Lenny and team for publishing that poem in South Flow Pojo. I grew up loving soap operas. My mother would tape Days of Our Lives for me because I did not miss it every day during the summer. So it has a special place in my heart. And I really want Deidre Hall to see this poem one day. I should write soap operas. My neighbor, well, technically, she isn't my neighbor since she lives on the other side of the building. 2's floor below, appeared with a baby a few weeks ago. I've been meaning to tell Paul about the baby, but the daily humdrum of life, work, rest, right, has blocked my thoughts. But today, we were walking Daisy and turned a corner, and there she was, baby strapped to chest, with its legs swinging. I think it might be a boy, but I'm not sure. All the other times I've seen it, it's been covered in a red blanket, which is no help since red is like yellow when babies are concerned. Anyway, I'm losing track of my point. I think the baby's stolen. Paul tells me she's probably babysitting. I say she probably stole it. Then add, but not from another country, as if this legitimizes my comment. Paul rolls his eyes and tells me she could steal the baby in one of my poems, but that's not why I'm writing this poem. I'll admit I'm the kind of guy who enjoys a giggle when I hear of someone objecting at a wedding. I'll admit I've watched soap operas since I was 8 and rooted for the villain most of the time. I adored Vivian and Sammy on Days of Our Lives. My mother threatened to quit taping episodes when I cheered for them. You might not know, Sammy stole her baby sister. Well, she stole her half baby sister, but only she and her cheating mother Marlena knew about the half part. I'm not saying this is the case with the mystery baby in my building. I'm only saying it's okay not to accept what's in front of you at face value. And I'm actually going to close out with the final poem from the chat book, which is called Meeting Judy Bloom. With "Are you there, God?" It's me, Margaret, in hand. I waited patiently in line. Judy had a volunteer pass us note cards. We wrote the personalized messages we wanted inscribed in our books. Judy looked at my card. A puzzled look came across her face, as if she'd passed a puppies for sale sign when there were kittens in a basket. I explained, it's a gift. I thought it'd be fun. Still appearing baffled, with pursed lips, she said, you realize this is a children's book. I fumbled, Miss Bloom, we, the gays, love you. She wrote the message, handed me the book, and said, I love most of you too. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dustin. And thank you, Denise, for a wonderful reading. We appreciate you both coming and hearing your terrific poems.